Recording now.
Right. All right. Welcome everyone to Kids Day Book Fest in virtual format. My name is Jennifer Black. I am an educational representative and independent consultant with Usborne Books and More. And usually, if this was an in-person event, I would be having a book fair set up, and half of the proceeds would go back to SCLO. But since we can't be in person, we're going to have a virtual book fair. And after this is all done, we'll have a link available for you to go and purchase books for your friends and family. And some of you might be familiar with Usborne Books and More, some of our most popular titles. I know they're backwards coming up, but a lot of these you can find at SCLO Library as well, because SCLO has a number of our books. I am a patron of SCLO Memorial Library, and these are my three kiddos who are now 13, 10, and 5, but I've been taking my kids there since my oldest was a couple weeks old. So SCLO means a lot to me, and it means a lot to me to be able to support the library in all times. So without further ado, I wanted to let you know who all is going to be here on our BookFest Children's Book Talk. We will have Eva Pell, Kathy Brysocker, Denise Kaminsky, Gail Kraus, and Jerry Sawyer today. Each person will give a presentation that will be about 5 to 7 minutes long, and this will also be able to be viewed later. So I want to thank you for attending today, and here is Eva Pell.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you today. I want to start by giving a big shout out to SCLO Library. Jennifer is right. It's such an important part of our community, and it was wonderful of them to host this. Today, I'm the author of the Rescue series, and today I'm going to introduce you to one of my latest books and tell you a little bit about the series. So to start with, how many of you realize that in the next few decades, 1 million species could go extinct? I can't even get my head wrapped around that idea. And that's the reason I decided to write this series, because I know that you kids out there are the ones going to have the ingenious ideas that maybe can save some of these animals. So let me just introduce you very briefly to the series. So 2 of the most important characters in Rescue are a boy, and you can see his picture here. His name is Wheaton Ginto. He's 11 years old. He's a brainiac. He already has a college degree in material science and engineering. And he invents all the wild sci-fi gizmos that Rescue uses to find animals. His partner is Stowe Linkle. She's his 12-year-old cousin. She's in the picture too. And she's the opposite of him. She's super gutsy. She lives in a rural place in Vermont, and she knows everything about the natural world and is great at getting clues and figuring things out. And so together they go on some of these rescues. Today I'm going to share with you a little bit about my second book called Rescue Takes on the Taki. Taki is a Mongolian word for spirit, and Taki are wild Mongolian horses that went extinct in the wild in the 1960s. Thanks to amazing conservation biologists, including some at the Smithsonian, where I actually worked at one time, animals have been bred in captivity, and Taki have been reintroduced into the wild. So this book and this story is about one harem, that's about 10 horses, that have disappeared from a national park where they had been reintroduced. And scientists are so worried about where they are, and they know that Rescue's got these great gizmos, and they've asked them to come and help. So Rescue goes over to Mongolia. They team up with a Mongolian nomadic girl named Sarnai, who's a little older than they are, and off they go to try and find this harem. So I'm going to read you a very short section now from the book. And it takes place when the three of them are out on the steppes of Mongolia. It's late October. It's getting really cold. They put up their tent, but a storm that they didn't expect comes along and it blows the tent right out of the ground. So I'm going to give you a little taste for what happens next. The tent flies off like a parachute in reverse, and Stowe screams, "I thought you said the weather was going to be good for the next 36 hours. It was, I yelled back. Not like I can control some random cloud. And who staked down the tent, Missy? This isn't all my fault. Stowe glares at me, pulls up her hood, yanks on her gloves, and without saying another word, races off chasing the tent. I pause for a second and then take off in pursuit. The snow and wind are blinding, and I've already lost sight of her. "Where are you?" I holler, calling Stowe's name over and over again. The storm is vicious. I can't see a foot in front of me. I forget how uneven the ground is and stumble. "Ow!" I scream as my feet slip into a hole. My hands scrape the ground as I grasp a tuft of grass to break the fall, my legs dangling in the unknown. Must be the coat, but I seem to be wedged in place. I can't pull myself out, but at least I'm not falling any farther. "Help!" I scream. "Stowe, where are you?" The wind drives snow up against my neck. Wish I could protect my face, but if I lift my hands, I might slip into whatever lies below. "Help! Help!" I continue to shout. And then I hear a familiar voice. "Wheaton, I hear you. Where are you? I'm coming." I don't see her approaching, but I keep shouting. "Hold on," she yells, appearing in front of me. "I'm stuck," I cry. "Get me out of here." She kneels down on the ground, weaves her arms under my armpits, and tries to free me. "You're wedged in pretty tight." "Don't let go," I beg. "My feet aren't touching the ground." "This must be one of those ninja mine holes we saw from the air," she mutters. "Put your arms around my neck and hold tight," Stowe orders. "When I start to pull, you wriggle if you can, and don't let go." The first few tries, I seem totally stuck. I'm starting to panic. "If you don't get me out of here, I'm going to turn into a human popsicle." "That's not an option," Stowe barks at me. "Let's try again." This time she squeezes me so hard that I break free of the hole. For a moment, it feels like I'm going to slip, but with Stowe holding tight, I slither out onto the frozen ground. We sit there stunned. "You okay?" she asks. I'm silent for a moment. I don't want to talk about how my heart is still pounding, so I change the subject. "Did you catch the tent?" Stowe shakes her head. "I lost sight of it as soon as it flew off." "What do we do now?" The storm hasn't let up. The driving snow feels like someone speed skating across my face. "The wind is going in that direction," Stowe points to our left. I'm so turned around, I don't know if it's east, west, north, or south. "The tent must have flown with the wind," Stowe says. "Let's follow, but hold my hand so we don't get separated or fall into any more holes." Having the wind behind us is good for our faces, but it's hard to put on the brakes. We don't see any more mine holes, a relief since we're being propelled, practically flying forward. It feels like we've been roaming around out here a long time when the wind finally settles down and the precipitation stops. Now it's just wicked cold and we're standing in an inch of snow. The clouds have disappeared, and whatever warmth was in the air is being sucked away at a rapid rate. "We've got to find shelter," Stowe says. "It's dangerous to be out here in this cold." We look around. I've never seen any place so empty. No houses, no people, nothing. Well, if you want to find out if they find out where they have to go and what happens to the horses, you're going to have to read the book. And I love to communicate with my readers. So feel free to go to my website, evapel.com. If you have any questions about the books or about endangered species, just go to the contact and send me an email. And I promise you, I'll write back to you. So thank you for being with me. And Jennifer, I turn it back to you. Thank you.
All right, I believe Kathy Brysocker is next.
Yes, hi. It's so great to be with everyone. I am an elementary school librarian and a STEM teacher in the Hollidaysburg area school district. And I write picture books. I have 3 picture books that are published right now, 2 that came out last year, and I have more that are written that hopefully will be published soon. But the 2 that I had that came out last year are Cave Kid Birthday, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this one, and Chip and Curly, The Great Potato Race. In this book, this is a prehistoric version of The Gift of the Magi, for those of you who are familiar with that classic story. In my Stone Age version, Cave Boy loves rocks, Cave Girl loves her tools, and they share the same birthday, and they're looking for the perfect birthday present to give each other. And so they have no money, so they have to barter for something at Caveman's Collectibles, and they have to use their creativity and imagination once they get their gifts to figure out what to do with the gifts that they get. This has themes of kindness and friendship and imagination and creativity in it. I love to come up with activities that kids can do, teachers, parents, kids can do with books as a tie-in if they want to. And on my website, kathybrysocker.com, I have activities listed. With this book in particular, I like to have kids make things out of boxes, because boxes play a big part in this story. I also like kids to paint rocks and leave inspirational messages on the rocks and leave the rocks for people to find, or make a kindness rock garden. That's always a fun activity. And I sometimes have kids make cave drawings as an activity to go with this book. So that's a little bit about Cave Kid's Birthday. My other book that came out last year is called Chip and Curly, The Great Potato Race, and it's full of potato puns, potato characters, words associated with potatoes, and it's about a potato chip named Chip and a curly fry named Curly. And I'm going to read this one to you, but part of my inspiration for this story came from the Ebensburg Potato Fest that is held every year. That definitely inspired me. And the other part of my inspiration for this was to have a story about winning and losing. And, sometimes despite our best efforts, things don't always turn out the way that we hope that they will. So I'm going to share this with you, and then I'll end at the end of the story. Is there a way to not share this screen so I could have this held up? I don't know if that's possible or not, so that people can see. Is there a way to remove the slides, maybe? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so Chip and Curly, The Great Potato Race. I'm gonna sit off to the side so you can see the pictures. The Spud City Festival was just days away, and the whole town was getting ready. Chip's favorite event was the sack race, but each year he came up short. This year he was determined to win the first place prize, a golden bushel award. But there was a problem. Curly. A new Spud had arrived in town, and he had quite a spring in his step. He's fast, Chip thought, so he practiced every chance he got. There's our guy, the roasted yams boasted as Chip leapt by. You're our hometown favorite, hollered the home fries. Still, Chip felt nervous. The morning of the festival, Chip arrived early to study the race path. Meanwhile, the crowd gathered. The couch potatoes lined the race route. The French fries stood with their tater tots, and the sweet potatoes practiced cheers. After stretching, Chip high-fived the tots and posed for pictures. Everything was going great until Curly arrived, leaping toward the other racers. Ugh, Chip groaned. To top it off, Curly wedged in next to him at the starting line. Chip gripped his sack and stared straight ahead. He wanted to win more than ever. Ready, set, go, said the announcer. The potatoes hopped forward and Chip whipped past everyone. Chip, 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 chanted the crowd. I've got this in the bag, he thought. Keep moving, the twice-bakes repeated. Chip heard someone gaining on him, but he didn't look back. Look out, the barbecue Chip shouted. Here comes a hot potato. And then it happened. Curly pulled ahead. The crowd went wild. Even the couch potatoes stood up and took notice. The waffle fries couldn't decide who to cheer for. Chip hopped faster, but he couldn't catch up. Just ahead, a tree root stuck out of the ground. Chip had his eye on it, but Curly headed right toward it. Curly tripped and tumbled to the ground. A thought sprouted in Chip's mind. With Curly down, this was his chance to win. He zipped past Curly and took the lead. But as the finish line came into view, he felt rotten. Chip glanced over his shoulder. He hashed it over in his mind. There was only one thing to do. He bounded toward Curly, who lay pancaked on the ground. Chip reached down and pulled him up while the other potatoes bounced by. 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato, 4, counted the announcer as the racers entered the final stretch of the course. 5 potatoes, 6 potatoes, 7 potato. Wait, here come 2 more. Curly and Chip had hopped back onto the path and were picking up speed. In a flash, Curly peeled ahead of the pack with Chip on his heels. As they neared the end of the route, at the end of the race, Chip barreled along and gave it all he had, but it was no use. Curly sprang across the finish line. In an instant, Chip's dreams of winning were mashed. The sweet potatoes cheered. The other racers congratulated Curly. They're going to butter him up now, Chip muttered. He slipped out of his sack and tossed it onto a pile. As he turned to leave, Curly stopped him. Hey, the relay is next. Want to be my partner? Chip froze in his steps. Me? Sure, no matter how you slice it, we'd make a great team. A smile sprouted on Chip's face. Okay, bud, let's do it. They practiced on the sidelines. Before long, they were in a groove. Yes, maybe I'll finally win a Golden Bushel Award, said Chip. But there was a problem. A new team had arrived, the shoestring fries. They were lean and snappy and moved in perfect step. Oh no. And that is the look of disappointment on a potato Chip's face when he realizes he may never win a Golden Bushel Award. So that is Chip and Curly, the Great Potato Race. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me.
All right. I believe next up is Denise Kaminsky. If she has made it, was she able to call in?
I'm here calling it in today.
All right.
Are we all set? Well, hello, everyone. I'm very glad to be part of this. Technology isn't my strong suit by any means, so I'm ending up doing this over the phone. I am happy to share my children's books starring the Nittany Lion. I have been lucky enough to have 7 of them published, and they have been well received. The first book I wrote was Nittany Lion Has the Hiccups. The lion goes hiking on Mount Nittany and he gets the hiccups. His animal friends try different cures that we've all tried here, there, and everywhere. But not until he meets up with Grandmother Bear. She had a cure that really worked for the lion, and I have used that cure in my classroom, and it works 99% of the time on children and grown-ups. So this book is very appealing to the youngest of children. My books are appreciated by preschoolers as well as up to maybe 3rd grade, depending on the reading level of the child. My second book was Nittany Lion Gets a Big Surprise. The lion gets an invitation to go to Beaver Stadium on a Friday, and he says, gee, I always have a good time there on Saturday. So he gets himself ready, he does his morning push-ups, he takes a bath with his rubber ducky, brushes his teeth, and heads out to say hi to people on campus on his way to Beaver Stadium. Well, over by Old Main, there's nobody around. Passes the creamery and that's closed. Nobody around. How can that be? When he gets close to the stadium, they call him in Bryce Jordan Center. The blue band needed help. Someone stuck a football in the tuba. And the lion says, well, I'll be happy to help. My big strong paws should be able to pull it out. So he does. He pulls it out. And then he helps the band with music for the pep rally because he says, I know all the songs by heart. And then it's time for me to get to the stadium. When he gets to the stadium, there is a big surprise there. It's a wonderful surprise, and I'm not sharing that today. You'll have to check it out. My third book is Nittany Lion Tells the Legend of Princess Nittany. The lion is a regular for story time at the local library, and he decides to tell the children the legend of Princess Nittany and how we became known as the Nittany Lions. And he fills in the whole story about how Princess Nittany got very upset, and she made a plan, and with a little bit of magic, she turned the mountain lions into Nittany lions. The next book is Nittany Lions Pennsylvania Vacation. The lion says, I love living here in Happy Valley. There's always so many wonderful things to do. But you know, maybe I should take a vacation somewhere in the beautiful Pennsylvania outdoors. Talks it over with his animal friends, checks his calendar, you know, when should I go? Which direction should I go in? Which season should I go in? And he mentions each season and some of the things he might be able to do in the beautiful Pennsylvania outdoors. And then he just tries to figure it out and makes a plan to go on vacation in the beautiful state of Pennsylvania. Some of my friends have purchased this book for their out-of-state young ones to show them all the wonderful things you could do if you come and have a vacation in beautiful Pennsylvania. My next book, Lion and Thon. Annie is a young girl who was one of the Thon children, and she and the lion tell all that the students in the lion do to raise funds all year for the children at the Hershey Medical Center with pediatric cancer. And net proceeds from that book I am donating to Thon. Then there's Nittany Lion and Earth Day. The lion thinks every day should be Earth Day, and he tells what he and the students do to take good care of the earth every day, all throughout Center County. Now, the last one is Nittany Lion Everyday Superhero. The lion does some little things and some big things on his way to be substitute reader at the library. He holds up a car for a man to fix a flat tire. He helps some children find a kitty who happened to be up in a tree. And he says, I know where cats like to go. And then he reads to the children at the library the story of Louis Braille and how he invented, that young man, how he invented the dots for blind people to read. And they have a little chat about different ways people can be heroes. And the librarian was so pleased that the lion always comes to help out when she needed a substitute reader. She says, you're my hero, Nittany Lion. I made this cape for you. And the cape has the word hero on the back. And just as the lion is leaving the library, he turns and he catches the janitor falling off a tall ladder. This shows the children you can be a hero no matter how you help someone, big or small, as long as you help them. I hope this little chat gives you an idea of what my books are like. They're available at the library and throughout the state at local retailers. I appreciate you're listening, and you can check out my newly installed website. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right. It looks like up next is Gail Kraus.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gail Kraus. I was a teacher for
Well, Jess,
over
how'd that
30
go?
years. Can you hear me? I was a teacher for over 30 years. I prepared high school students and college students who wanted to become teachers. And one of my favorite things in the curriculum to teach them was children's literature. So because I taught children's literature and I taught preschoolers and high school students, I tend to write picture books and YA novels. My first YA novel is called Rat Girl, Song of the Viper, and it's a retelling of the Pied Piper, which is a fairy tale. I have a passion for fairy tales. Almost everything I write is related to a fairy tale some way or another. So this is a story that takes place in the future. It's a dystopian YA urban fantasy where a girl, instead of a man, uses her voice to save the children and the people of the town. My middle grade book, which is not a fairy tale, but it is based on the Betsy Ross legend, is called Twice Betrayed. And it's a retelling of the Betsy Ross legend where her 13-year-old apprentice is accused of being a spy. And she needs to save herself, and she only has her little sister and the cabin boy from another country to help her clear her name. And in the course of all the confusion, she's the one who actually developed the flag, not Betsy Ross. Because most people don't know that that's just a legend and there's no proof that Betsy Ross actually made the flag. What happened was George Washington, George Ross, and Robert Morris asked every person who stitched, haberdasher, tailor, seamstress, upholsterer, to come up with the flag, and they chose one. Happened to be the one with the 13 stars in the circle. And 100 years later, when Philadelphia was having a historical society meeting, they said, well, now who actually made that flag? And it was Betsy Ross's grandson or her great-grandson that said, oh, it was my grandmother. And that's how she got credit for making the flag. So there is no proof one way or the other. So in my book, it's her apprentice that makes it. Another book that I have, my newest two books that are on the slide here are Daddy, Can You See the Moon? And it's about a little boy whose dad is deployed, and the father has a way for him to stay connected, and they each look at the moon at night. The illustrations are beautiful. They're done by Carla Stola Garza, who is an art teacher in Texas. And this is just an example. It's all done in rhyme. So it's a very serious topic, but it's done in a lighthearted way. And the other one that I have, which I love, is a poetry collection of fractured fairy tales. Now, for those of you who may not know what a fractured fairy tale is, it's a mashup of 2 or 3 or more fairy tales that you put together to tell another story. Well, what I've done is I've put them together in rhyme or in different poetry forms. Some of them are free verse, some of them are pantoum, some of them are limerick, but I'm going to read you one of my favorite ones, and you'll see what I mean. Maybe you can guess which characters they are. This is called A Prince for a Pea. The princess acted cranky. She hadn't slept a wink. She felt like she'd been sleeping in the castle's kitchen sink. Her hip was tight and achy. Her neck was out of whack. Her spine looked like a squirmy snake had slithered down her back. I need to get some sleep, she cried. My kingdom is at stake. I cannot spend another night lying wide awake. I need to choose a prince who will help me rule the land. How can I make a wise choice when I can hardly stand? She dropped upon her throne, her weary red eyes teared, when from behind the dais popped a dwarf with a long beard. I can help you, princess. Sleeping is my game, for I have slept 100 years and no one knows my name. It's a pity you can't sleep. You're such a lovely lass. Have you tried lying in a coffin made of glass? Can you use a spinning wheel? If not, you should learn quick. I've heard a lasting sleep will come with just one finger prick. But looking at your cushions stacked upon your bed so high, I know the reason you can't sleep. And I can tell you why. Being such a short man, I see things you can't see, like the lump beneath your mattress that looks to be a pea. If I were you, princess, I'd take this little pea and add it to a pot of soup that you could serve to me. I like peas porridge hot. I like peas porridge cold. And if you choose me as your prince, I'll spin your straw to gold. Now, there are several fairy tale characters written within this. Obviously, the first one is the Princess and the Pea. The one at the end, the little guy who finds out that her problem is the pea and offers her a bargain, I'll spin your straw to gold if you use that pea to make me soup, is Rumpelstiltskin. And there's a nod in here to Mother Goose because of the peas porridge hot and the peas porridge cold, and also to Rip Van Winkle, who isn't a fairy tale, but he is folklore. And so this whole entire book is filled with all different types of fairy tales that are mixed together. And that's Once Upon a Twisted Tale. Now, both this book and this book can be purchased at www.clearforkpublishing.com, which is the publisher that did these books, or any one of the books that I showed you. Those two, this one can be purchased on my website or on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And this is my very first book, which is probably my bestseller. It's Rockstar Santa. And this is also in rhyme, which I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but Will Terry was the illustrator, and he's very famous in the United States for being a children's book illustrator. And this one also is in rhyme. So it's rock the house, don't be quiet like a mouse, guitar licks and jamming drums, rock the house when Santa comes. And this has got a nod this is for adults as well as the children will like the story, but the adults will get a kick out of the illustrations. Now this is supposed to be Paul Stanley from Kiss, but because the Kiss has their looks copyrighted, we had to change the look of the characters. So that's Paul Stanley. This is supposed to be Keith Richards. And here's Slash from Guns N' Roses. So the kids will like the story, the parents will like the illustrations. This book, however, is only available from Scholastic, or if you can get it from a third-party seller on Amazon. So that's what I have for you today. I could talk a little bit about fairy tales, but I don't know how many minutes I have left. Does anybody know how many minutes I have? No? Okay, well then, I'm good. If you'd like to find any of these books, like I said, on my website, it's www.gailckrause.com. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you, Gail. Next up and last up is Jerry Sawyer.
Friends were delighted with it, so we gave it to a book club, a mother-daughter book club here in State College, and they read through it, and they really loved it. In fact, the young ladies in the book club didn't want it to end. They wanted to, you can see the picture on the right there is the wedding scene at the end. Well, that's where I ended the book, but they wanted details of the wedding. They wanted to know about the wedding dress and all that sort of thing. Now, the young boys that had read it, they were more interested in, can you hear me? I'm getting a sign. Okay, so they're more interested in how Harry climbs the mountain and encounters the dragon. So it's really for almost any age. The young readers that I had read it were 10 to 14, which means Jennifer's kids would probably get a kick out of it. But since they wanted to read more about it, I guess the old adage about leave them wanting more is apropos here. So about the book. As you'll see on the book jacket, it says a delightful tale of adventure and courage. And it's more than that, though. It's a boy meets girl, but it's full of positive family relationships and humor. My adage is, if it's not fun, don't do it. So let's look at the story. It's only 56 pages long, so it's an easy read for for young readers, and it's got bits and pieces of references that adults will find amusing as they read it to younger children. To set the stage, there's a dragon that's come to settle on a ledge that overlooks the town. The dragon, named Tony, according to the legend, has begun making very loud noises that can be heard throughout the valley day and night. He's disturbing the townsfolk and putting them on edge. Now, Harry, our hero, has fallen in love with the Duke's daughter, the Princess Jenny, and he decides that the only way he could ever come to her attention would be to do something heroic. So she would hear about him. But of course, she already knows about Harry. So he feels that he can tame the dragon and he will get to meet her, but his father questions his decision. Harry's father, Harold, recognized this spark of energy in his son and decided to speak to him. "Why do you question so?" Harold asked his son. "What drives you to this state of inquiry?" "I have no answer for you," Harry said. "I'm troubled, to be sure, and the causes are probably as complicated as they are meaningless. Tell me why this is so, Father. Give me a sign." "You're no different than I was at your age," Harold confided. "In the year of the leaf, I ran away to Da. Yes, to Da. There was a camp down by the racetrack 5 miles long, and to Da that day. I tried to run all night, tried to run all day, but I lost my money through a hole in my bag and had to bed down by the bay." Harold gripped his son's shoulder. "Perhaps you need this too, Harry. Perhaps it's your time to run." Well, Harry, before he gets to set off on his quest, he decides he needs to at least get a glimpse of the princess. So he sees that she's coming through town in the royal carriage, and he decides to try and climb the fountain to see if he can get a glimpse of her. Thicket surrounding Sleeping Beauty's castle wouldn't have been more formidable. But just when he thought he would miss the chance for a peek, one young boy lost his foothold on the top of the fountain and slipped, hardly noticed, into the clear mountain spring water. Harry seized his chance and clambered to the top. And just as Harry caught sight of the princess, he also lost his grip on the fountain. And just as his fingers slipped from the smooth stone, Tony of water, pitcher into the water. And just as the first drops touched the rim, Princess Jenny leaned forward in the coach to see the person on top of the fountain. And just as she recognized him as the son of the wise jeweler, well, you can imagine the delirium that followed. "Ah," thought little brother Geoffrey, who must make sure that the princess knows the name of the hero who set off to tame the dragon in case he never returns. So that's the story. Harry does climb the mountain. He encounters the dragon. It turns out to be a female giving birth, and that's why she's making so many loud sounds. She's actually calling out for help. So he does tame the dragon, and he meets Jenny, and there is a wedding, and they assume they live happily ever after. That's where the story ends. But the book is available on Amazon for $9.99 as a Kindle. And as a paperback, it's $12.95. So you can look up The Dragon Legend of Wa on Amazon. It'll come right to the page. And I hope you enjoy it. And I guess that's all, folks. Thanks.
All right, I wanted to thank everyone today for coming and watching, and thank you also to all of the authors, Eva Pell, Kathy Brysocker, Denise Kaminsky, Gail Kraus, and Jerry Sawyer. Again, my name is Jennifer Black, and you can see a link to my page where you can purchase Usborne and Kane Miller books with half of the money going back to SCLO for them to purchase books. And also you can take a look at any of the authors' websites. They were listed in the chat, but I'm guessing they will also be linked to on the BookFest page. The folks at SCLO can speak more to that. But again, thank you so much for coming today. We had a fun time.
Thank you.
Yes, so just real quick as SCLO, it looks like we lost Maria, another SCLO person, so there was a little technical difficulty, but we will be posting the video and the website where all of these wonderful authors, you can check out their web pages, email them, or order their books. Thanks for coming.